Last week, President Joe Biden said he would spend part of his final months in office focusing on Supreme Court reforms. We're getting more details of what exactly Biden is looking to do. Washington, D.C. correspondent Hannah Brandt has more details for us.
The changes President Biden is calling for would dramatically reshape the Supreme Court, but he needs Congress to get it done.
Extremism is undermining the public confidence in the court's decisions.
Full of criticism for the Supreme Court, President Biden laid out a plan to change it.
I'm calling for 3 bold reforms to restore trust and accountability to the court and our democracy.
He proposed 18-year term limits for justices, a binding code of ethics, and a constitutional amendment to reverse the court's recent ruling solidifying presidential immunity. This comes after several controversial decisions from the court and amid concern over various ethical scandals surrounding justices' personal behaviors.
These fringe rulings and ethical scandals are not the signs of a healthy Supreme Court. They are the signs of a court run amok.
Democratic Senate leader Chuck Schumer agreed with the president and says Congress should follow through with passing the reforms, but others disagree.
The left wages daily warfare against the justices.
Republican Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell accuses Democrats of being motivated by politics.
President Biden and his leftist allies don't like the current composition of the court, so they want to shred the Constitution to change it.
But Senator Schumer argues lawmakers have a responsibility to act.
It's plain as day that Congress is well within its rights to conduct oversight.
Control of Congress is split between the parties, so these reforms aren't likely to happen anytime soon. And Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson called the plan dead on arrival. In Washington, I'm Hannah Brandt.
And joining me this morning is Professor Carolyn Shapiro. She's the founder and co-director of Chicago-Kent's Institute on the Supreme Court of the United States at the IIT. Professor, thanks for joining me this morning. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So I'm going to start. I'm not turning you into a political person with this. You are a law professor. But the critics of Biden's suggestions are saying this is just unhappy Democrats who can't deal with the fact that the court has turned conservative. My question to you is, as you study the Supreme Court, given the court's recent decisions from overturning Roe a couple of years ago to the Chevron decision this year, which basically strips federal agencies of their power, is it a fair assumption or request for Democrats to say something needs to happen here? This court is out of line of what Supreme Court should be doing.
I think that the Supreme Court has always made some decisions that are unpopular, and we want a court that has enough independence to be able to do that. But there's also a saying that the Supreme Court follows the election returns, and that's always been true at a very low level. The idea is that we have a democratic, small d, democratic input into who's on the court. The president appoints, the Senate confirms. And the reason we have that system is so that there will be some, again, small d, democratic input into the jurisprudence of the justices, et cetera. That's really been severed in recent years. The last 3 justices who were appointed by President Trump were appointed by a president who lost the popular vote and confirmed by the votes of senators who collectively represent millions of Americans fewer than those who voted against the confirmation.
And Professor,
I just
want to shift you into some of the president's proposals, because what you say is true. Under one of the president's plans, which is that we would have 18-year term limits here, that would pretty much mean that a president will appoint somebody every 2 years. Each president gets 2 picks, 4 if they serve 2 terms. Isn't that also creating a one-sided court one way or the other?
The idea behind the term limits proposal, if we stick with a 9-justice court, is that no president would be able to appoint a majority of the justices on the court. So it would be, I don't think it would necessarily be a one-sided court. And to the extent that it might have the same president or the same party appointing a series of justices in a row, that would be because of the Democratic input in the elections. So it's also possible to add seats to the court at the same time as putting the 18-year term limits in place, which would make it so that any particular president would have even a smaller proportion of the court that you would be able to appoint.
There may be some desire for that by the people, but another thing the president, of course, wants is an ethics code. We hear that a lot from Senator Whitehouse and others. But as I understand it, pretty much an ethics code that's enforceable by the court has to be enforced by the court. Nobody really has the power to do that. Or can Congress force an ethics code on the court, especially given all we've been reading about Justice Thomas, Justice Alito?
Congress, in my view, can require the court to adopt an ethics code and require it to be enforceable. And I think the most sensible way of making it enforceable would be something along the lines of what Justice Kagan suggested recently, which is to have a panel of lower court senior judges, so judges who've been on the bench for a long time, who would review the ethics concerns. Ultimately, I think the court itself, the Supreme Court itself, would probably have to retain a certain amount of oversight or would insist on that. But it would be a very different situation than we have now if there was a panel of judges, federal judges, who said, wait, this is not okay. One of these justices should recuse themselves, or one of these justices has improperly not disclosed or accepted.
It gets complicated quickly. Only about a half a minute left. I want to quickly ask you the constitutional amendment to limit the immunity that the Supreme Court has granted. Is a constitutional amendment the only way to fix that? And it would seem unlikely that will happen anytime soon.
Constitutional amendment is the only way to do it and be sure it will work. But Senator Schumer has actually introduced a law called the No Kings Act, which says, more or less, we, Congress, believe that the Supreme Court got it wrong. We are going to announce that presidents do not have immunity from the criminal law and can be prosecuted after they leave office. And we are actually going to strip the Supreme Court of jurisdiction to hear challenges to this law.
Going to be a fascinating political process, to be sure. Professor Carolyn Shapiro, thank you for your time on this Sunday. Have a great day and appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, one more break. Up next, the familiar face that's getting back into politics in Cook County. You'll want to hear it. Stay with us.